time. This programme has learned that British special forces such as the SAS are lobbying for a new mission. The mission, should ministers choose to authorise it, is to focus more on countering Russian and other forces around the world. The change of tack comes as missions against Islamic State targets in Syria and Iraq begin to wind down. Our diplomatic editor, Mark Urban, has the exclusive story.
These days, the military is obsessed with the grey zone, that space that Russia and some other countries have exploited to advance their own interests.
That hybrid space that exists between those two increasingly redundant states of peace and war.
In NATO countries, they want to step up their own efforts, and perhaps inevitably in Britain's case, that involves using special forces. It comes as the kind of counter-terrorist missions that have dominated the work of special forces for the past 2 decades are winding down. So the type of manhunting or door-kicking performed thousands of times in Iraq and Afghanistan is now being conducted less often, and military chiefs are keen to switch some of that capacity as it frees up. Under the Special Operations concept, a scheme put forward by the Director of Special Forces, that effort would be assigned to counteracting the efforts of authoritarian states. The new plan involves boosting the role of the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, the UK's military covert surveillance specialists. They would mount long-term operations, often undercover. The SAS and SBS would form regionally tasked units designed to partner local forces and bolster the surveillance effort. The aim is to improve operations in contested areas such as Eastern Europe, the Middle East or Africa by proxies of countries like Russia, Iran and China.
We're all in the game of asymmetric advantage, and we've been consumed until very recently by the specific demands of counter-terrorist and counter-insurgency missions, which I think we'll come to regard in the light of the re-emergence of state-based threats as being a minor chord in comparison to contending with great powers with advanced military capabilities and flexible hybrid doctrines.
It's the covert actions of Russia in places like Ukraine that have been a prime driver for the new Special Operations concept. In a situation like this, UK forces might be used to galvanise the responses of local allies, improving their knowledge of hostile forces and enabling a response to them. But the new missions could include efforts much further afield. In Africa, for example, where the British government feels that Russian and Chinese private military companies have been used to take over whole regions. In places like Yemen or Iraq, the emphasis would be on countering Iranian influence.
Well, Mark is with me now. So is this just going to be special forces, or is it going to be broader if it gets accepted?
Well, this so-called grey zone that they've all become preoccupied by, no, it involves efforts across the spectrum of activities, but it tends to be the things that are discreet, that you can't see. It's not sending in a battalion of troops, as we've seen in the Baltic Republics, for example. So it is focused on things like information operations, cyber operations, and covert surveillance and that type of thing, which they want to do. They want to build up. If the GRU is using a trucking company to go into an East European company as a cover or whatever, they want to expose that kind of activity and concert action against it.
And this is this change of focus away from terror, away from IS?
Well, I think realistically, you know, if situations come up with Islamic militants in which Britons are taken hostage, all that kind of thing, then of course special forces are still going to be used. That isn't going to disappear as a mission. But what they can't escape is the fact that that's winding down in Iraq and Syria following the fall of the territorial so-called caliphate. It's been dissipated. They aren't mounting as many operations. MOD is in a tight spot in budgetary terms. They want to protect their establishment. They want to tackle this emerging threat, as they would say.
Another story you can talk us through from today, of course, these explosions